So it is true what they say, you hear the thunder before you see the lightning. Here's a look at the Master Universe Masterverse, Master Universe New Eternia, Thunder Punch, He-Man. To combat the even deadlier foes ahead, He-Man used the powers of Grayskull to energize his weapons, giving him a new Thunder Punch to combat evil. I don't think it's a good idea for Skeletor to be counting seconds in between sounds. Just before, of course, we get a closer look at the new Eternia Thunder Punch He-Man. Let's take the tape measure, and let's just see how tall the figure stands. A little bit older of a figure. Just recently, in fact, we looked at the Flying Fist version of He-Man. We're kind of working back a little bit now, looking at the Thunder Punch, the first time that He-Man's used this head sculpt. Though for the tape measure, it's going to tell us that the figure is going to stand about the same, 7 inches in height. That translates, though, to a figure that's 18 centimeters tall. He is, yeah. He-Man, that is, has the exact same head sculpt as the Flying Fist He-Man that we've already had a look at. Much more tan, though, in the Thunder Punch variety. Much more smudging also on the top of his forehead. That also seemed to be shared as well with the figure that I have, a Faker. Why is it that these two figures have this ugly smudge on the top of his forehead, and yet this version of He-Man doesn't? You can probably also see that the Thunder Punch variety also has eyeliner around his eyes. Now, I've already put in a request for a replacement of this. I actually ordered this from Amazon. Not for the fact that cosmetically this He-Man looks ugly, but he's also missing an accessory. Oh, man. We're going to talk more about that in a moment. But also as well, here's what the figure looks like with the Thunder Punch He-Man from the Master Universe Origins line. I don't know why it's about this He-Man that makes him so much more expensive. Flying Fist He-Man, you can easily still pick up probably like $5 to $10. I think even some dollar stores have gotten Flying Fist He-Man. Yet Thunder Punch, no, you can't. I was actually tempted to get another version of Thunder Punch He-Man, because this is one of the only few He-Mans. I think actually this is the only He-Man that has the snapback feature. My plan, until I realized how expensive this guy was going for, was to actually customize this guy, kit bash him with an original He-Man from the Origins line. I was going to actually use this body. I was going to take the armor off the original Origins He-Man, put that on in place, and then I was going to swap out the boots for the one we got from Man-at-Arms. So I was going to try to get the closest thing to a vintage He-Man until I realized the price that this guy was going for. Without a word of a lie, Thunder Punch He-Man will set you back anywhere from $40 to $80. Expensive He-Mans aside, let's look at the accessories, or lack thereof, that come included with Thunder Punch He-Man. You'll notice right away, if you get a good lay of the land, he has included the fists, the flying parts of, obviously, the flame effects that go on the ends of his hands, and then he comes with the cap pieces that go on his backpack. Nowhere will you see right now he comes included with a sword. I checked inside the bag. I checked inside the box. I checked inside the recycling where everything got tossed into, and yet I can't find the sword at all. So because, again, I ordered this from Amazon, I put the request in. I can understand why Amazon does this. I mean, you have to ship back the original one in order to get the replacement. But if it's missing accessory, you'd like to think that Amazon, being the company that they are, couldn't just simply send you a brand new figure. I can understand probably why they don't do that, because, I mean, anyone could easily just say, hey, I'm missing a part. Send me another one, please. But unfortunately, it is the thing that completes He-Man, considering really that the sword gets housed inside the shield, and the fact I don't even have the sword really is a bummer to me. I did want to push forward, though, at least with this review, because I did want to talk about the fact that this guy does not have a sword, but it would be probably something that I might do a follow-up video. I don't know. I mean, does anybody really want to see a second video of Thunder Punch He-Man just to express the fact that the sword I now have in my disposal? The sword, by the way, though, would have been housed inside of his shield. I'm going to bring in the one that we got here from the Origins line. It doesn't have as much of the decorative detail, but what it does have, though, is a chrome finish. The sword, if for all intents and purposes we had the original sword for this version of He-Man, would have just slid in place, just like that. Now, this one obviously would have had that as well. It would have slid right through here, and it would have just basically, the point of the sword would have gone into the end of it. I mean, without that, though, unfortunately, it's an incomplete figure. I mean, again, the fact that we're even looking at this figure in the review, I kind of feel like I'm underwhelming in just the fact that he is missing something of an accessory. He does have, though, 2 cap pieces. Now, if you had the original Flying Fist He-Man, or the Thunder Punch He-Man, I'm getting confused with my He-Mans. If you have the Thunder Punch He-Man, the original one would have used caps. A lot of figures back in the day would have used caps. Cops, also as well, RoboCop, the RoboCop line would have used caps like this. Although I think with RoboCop, it was like it was the caps that basically were on the little ribbon, the little paper tape, and you would feed them through and you would pop them on the back of the figure. So I'll just scratch that. But I think cops may have included some of the cap guns like this. But anyways, the whole point of this is that you have 2 of them. You have a red one and then you have a gold one. You could use the red, you could use the gold. Usually what I end up just doing is I use the red one just because the gold one's going to sit on the back of his body. You would none be really any bit wiser to know where that's supposed to go. But you basically just take yourself your cap and it just slides on top of that ring like this. I wouldn't say it's to the point where, like, if you tip it upside down, clearly it's going to fall out. I wish there was a way to kind of lock this better in place, but I guess they do it in the way that they do, just so it's a lot easier to remove it. But again, like, this would have been step 2. The step 3 part would have been just the sliding of the sword in the back, in the top of the shield. Unfortunately, I don't have that. The shield, by the way, though, the original He-Man would have actually held it. So just looking at the Origins version, there is just a large handle on the back of that. So if you had yourself an expensive He-Man, what's that all about? But you basically would just take He-Man's hand and you just clip it in place. I mean, it's such an awkward shield anyways to get around He-Man's hand. There we go. It's better just to do it like that. There we go. You get the idea. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time showing you guys what that looks like, how it fits into his hand. But anyways, though, that clips into his hand. This He-Man does things a little bit differently, though. With a cap in place, with the sword not in place. All you do, basically, if you look on the side of He-Man's arms, he has these large pegs. So he doesn't actually hold the shield this time around. You take the peg and you just plug it onto the side of his arm, which is one way they've modernized the character. You know, that's not a bad thing at all. It's an awfully small shield. I don't know how much protecting he's really going to be doing for himself. I mean, he's He-Man after all. The idea of him really having a shield is sort of the equivalent of Flash needing a motorbike. Does it really make any sense? No, it doesn't. You can also take the shield as well. And on the back of the figure's body, this is the cap section as well. That, see, there's a hole right here. Yeah, of course you can see the hole. And there's the peg. Take the two, match it up. It's simple shapes, guys. And that plugs in place. Just be careful, though, that the caps don't slide out the bottom of it, but everything basically stores in place. And if you had a sword, sort of fit right in there as well. Oh, no. Anyways, let's go ahead and just take the shield off. Going to He-Man's backpack, though, by the way, you can open up the back of the backpack. You can take yourself another round of the racks, another round of the caps, and that just fits in place. These fit a little bit better because they... Hold on. See right there, they fit around the shapes. Simple shapes. Come on, guys. Fits that in place, and then this just closes up. It doesn't really matter if you have the caps there, although one thing that does do, I mean, once you have the caps there, you can actually kind of see them in the top of the backpack, and then you just turn it. That's all it does. Is it actually popping anything? No, it's not. It's just a ratcheted sound that it's making. But it's the equivalent of a cap being popped. After a while, you probably will get tired of doing that. You're never probably going to do it again. A couple more times. The backpack does add, obviously, much more volume on the back of his body. I mean, if you look at the original He-Man or the Origins version, he does also have a beefy backpack as well. The backpack could technically be detached as well. It pegs in right here, and the other strap fits around and pegs right into here. So, you know, just unstrap this, whoop, just take that completely off. You don't have to make that whoop noise when you're doing that. Speaking of things that can be removed, hey now, He-Man does also have a couple of replacement hands. Now, the thing about these hands is that the closed fists, they probably come best in handy when you're looking at these fiery effects. The fire effects basically fit over top of He-Man's existing hands, but the problem with using the gripping hands is that they don't fit as well. I mean, you really have to force them on there. They're really more intended to be used with the smaller fists as opposed to the gripping hands. So we're just going to hold on to the gauntlet here, and I'm going to remove the hand here. Now, while I'm removing this, one thing I did also want to mention is that the bracelets here are also removable. One idea I was kind of thinking, because now I'm going to be getting myself a replacement Thunder Punch He-Man, I think what I am going to end up doing is I'm just going to order another He-Man. Because, again, you have to pack this guy back up, ship him along his merry little way to Amazon. I think what I might just end up doing is just ordering another He-Man, and then I'll just have two. But the idea I was kind of thinking about, though, is bringing back in the Flying Fist He-Man. Remember he had these gauntlets on his arms? I actually kind of like that he had the red bracelets instead. So, you can probably see where I'm going with this. If I have another He-Man, technically, I have another pair of bracelets. And because Flying Fist He-Man also did have red bracelets, I can use the one from Thunder Punch He-Man, because after all, I'm going to now have two of them. That may also fix potentially the problem with the smudging on his head, but we'll talk more about that in a second. Anyways, we're going to pop the hands off here for right now. We're going to replace with the closed fist. And again, those just plug in place like this. It's very easy to do. And then from there, you can take your I keep wanting to call him Flying Fist, because I know I have Flying Fist just off to the side here. I keep looking at him. Probably stop looking at him. Thunder Punch He-Man now has Thunder Punching Fist action. You can also do this also on this side as well, because I don't have a sword right now. I might just end up having displayed with the two flaming fists for right now. But again, like, there's a couple of options. I think what I might just end up doing is when I get the other replacement He-Man, I'm going to see which is the better of the two head sculpts. I'm sure it can't get any worse, I say that now, than the head that we have with this figure right now. What's again with the smudging? This is the same smudging problem that came with Fakor, which I still don't have a replacement for. And the smudging also seems to be the exact same shape. I mean, I don't know. I'm not much of a detective, but I mean, like, it does seem like it's the same shape of smudge. I'm probably just crazy. Anyways, He-Man does, as you can see, has a little bit more of a darker tan. So just to bring back in the Flying Fist, that's why I keep talking about Flying Fist He-Man. This He-Man didn't have as much of a darker tan. Certainly doesn't have. I mean, like, you can see, like, the blonde hair. I think you probably prefer the blonder hair on He-Man. Yeah, I do too. I mean, it's a shame that you couldn't use this hair and this face, because I think the head sculpt's a much cleaner looking face for one thing, but I don't like the darker brown. I think this He-Man with the blonder hair works a little bit better. But same head sculpt, just this one is, I mean, it's so crazy when you look at the two things, that with one being a darker tan, I mean, it just makes it look like a completely different head sculpt. I know it's not. Anyways, though, for the rest of He-Man's face, I mean, just look at that, eh? What's with the smudge makes it's such a detractor away from the sculpt. If not for that, it would be a passable enough He-Man head. Of course, he's got the eyeliner around his eyes. I would have really preferred without it myself, but I do think that the blonde hair works better on Thunder Punch He-Man than it does with Flying Fist He-Man. Of course, he has different type of armor. The armor is removable if you wanted to. It does also look, too, like you could probably be able to remove these. I'm probably just going to leave them in place because that's the only thing that's keeping his shield in place. But unlike Flying Fist He-Man, one thing I hated about that figure is that it did have that extra little loincloth guard piece. You can't remove it, but at least this He-Man just has a regular version of that. It seems still to be that they're using the faker body. Again, like, the coloring looks really good on him. If not for the fact, yeah, it's a little bit of an eyesore up top there. For the figure articulation, of course, the head's going to rotate all the way around. If you're familiar with that guy, you can be familiar with this guy. Head looks up only by a little bit. It looks down, and it also moves back and forth as well. Upper torso is going to be on a ball joint. The waist is only on a straight swivel. The arms rotate all the way around. You can hinge them out also as well. A swivel at the bicep, single hinge elbow. Hands rotate back and forth. Legs do split out. No restrictions at all by loincloth on either side. A little too close, a little too close. Legs go forward. Legs go back. 3/4 of the way up the thigh, there's a swivel cut. The figure does have a double hinge on the knee. There is articulation as well for the boots. A little on the looser side. A little looser now. It was a little more on the tighter side. Ankle pivot back and forth. Ankle rocker as well. And, of course, the peg holes and bombs of his feet. I think only the third time that this figure head has been used, though ironically enough, it's the second He-Man. Or I should say the first He-Man that has this head and then was carried over by the Flying Fist variety. You know, again, like, looking at the figures, where's my faker? Where's my faker? Right there. Looking at the figures and how those three heads, obviously I feel the best one is still the Flying Fist He-Man, but I like the blonde better on the Thunder Punch He-Man. I mean, obviously this whole time I'm still bummed by the fact that I'm missing a sword. The one thing that He-Man would be known for having. I mean, like, without He-Man's sword, how can he even transform back to Prince Adam? Well, we already kind of know what ended up happening if that was the case. You know, I still have put the order in with Amazon. Initially I was thinking, okay, you know, just to get the replacement, then I'm going to have to box this guy back up. I didn't destroy the packaging, but just the idea of kind of putting everything together, I was kind of thinking to myself, well, you know, instead of packing everything back, shipping this guy back over to Amazon, and this guy's probably either going to be destroyed or, like, I don't know what they even do with returns like that. They probably, like, mark them down and then somebody's just going to be ultimately buying them. I think for me, I'm probably going to hold out hope that I'm going to get a better looking Thunder Punch He-Man. First of all, that's going to have a sword. That's the most primary thing, but may in fact also have a better head sculpt. And then what am I going to do with this original Thunder Punch He-Man? Well, if everything then checks off nicely with the other replacement I'm going to be getting, I think what I might end up doing is taking the bracelets off of this one, adding it onto Flying Fist He-Man, so we have at least one that's a little bit more closer to the original vintage and the Origins release. Okay, so my He-Man doesn't have as much power this time around, or actually he's replacing one power with the other. Yeah, he doesn't have his power sword. That's going to be replaced shortly by Amazon. He does have at least still his Thunder Punch action. The Thunder Punch can be pulled off by simply pulling off the hands that he has out of the packaging. The gripping hands aren't really going to cut it when it comes to fitting inside the fiery effects. Simply just pop those out and swap them out with the closed fist variety. The gripping hands by now would only be the only thing that's going to have to go back into an accessory bag. Everything else accessory-wise can be attached onto the figure's body. Let's say you had this sword, for example, and I don't, but let's say that you did. The sword would fit into the shield along with the caps. The shield would then go on the back of his body. The stick was on the limb was on the tree. Oh, sorry, wrong song. But that would go on the back of his body, and for all intents and purposes, Thunder Punch He-Man would be able to be displayed on the shelf with everything that he comes included with. Now, of course, I'm still waiting out for Amazon. I mean, it's going to take probably like 3 to 5 days. I mean, the way that the post system works right now here in Canada, we've got a strike. So everything's sort of been delayed when it comes to anything coming to the house or to a post office for that matter. So it might take a little bit longer. I could have really just waited and got the replacement from Amazon and just went ahead with the review and just told you guys that all the accessories were included. But I'm not going to do you dirty like that. I'm going to tell you everything that was missing on the figure, being the sword. And then when I get the replacement for He-Man, I don't know. I'm not going to do a full-out review of Thunder Punch He-Man, but maybe in another review of a new Eternia figure, for example, I'll bring in the Thunder Punch He-Man, I'm sure, with the sword. And then I'll let you guys know if he had a better head sculpt than he gets right now. Still, what's going on with the smudge and the eyeliner on He-Man? This He-Man has a better tan. He's got a better color hair, but it still is a detractor that he's got this ugly smudge on the top of his head. He kind of looks like Jack Napier when he's wiping away the makeup in the '89 Batman movie. I still think it's a better hair color than what we got with Flying Fist. And again, when I do get that replacement from Amazon, I think my plan is to take the bracelets off of this He-Man and put it on the one for Flying Fist. Because again, like, just simply slide off. What do you guys think of this figure? Let me know down below in the comments section. Maybe perhaps not for Thunder Punch, but let me know if you've ever had an instance where you bought a figure and it was missing an accessory. It could have been a really important accessory like a swappable head. Obviously, if you're buying things from stores, a lot of times you can probably notice right away if somebody's tampered with the packaging. So I'm going to pose this to anybody that's ordered something online. Have you ever gotten a figure and it's been missing accessories? Let me know down below your horror stories. By the way, in the meantime, if you guys did enjoy this video, do it a solid, throw it a like. You guys want to stick around for more so? I hope so. Hit the subscribe, turn on that bell, and of course, stay tuned. We're wrapping up things right now for an incomplete He-Man, but there will be more Masterverse reviews coming your way. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.